a snowy morning in Berlin, January 1942. In a villa on the shores of Lake Wannsee, senior members of the Nazi Party gathered. The meeting was convened by Reinhard Heydrich.
He's a sort of shadowy figure. He cultivates that image as well of being a man who is sort of the perfect Nazi.
Heydrich had an interest in racist politics from a young age and married a woman who was a committed Nazi. A family friend introduced him to Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS. In 1931, Himmler brought Heydrich into the SS and put him in charge of its intelligence arm, the SD. He was chillingly effective.
And by the time that the Second World War broke out in 1939, he had become one of the most senior and most feared Nazis.
It was Heydrich's job to identify enemies of the Nazi project. When Germany invaded Poland, his agents went in to find and often shoot nationalists and anti-Nazis. They also began to round up Jewish citizens for future removal. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Heydrich ordered the annihilation of Soviet Jews. The point of the Wannsee Conference in 1942 was for Heydrich to outline the logistics of his plan to eliminate Europe's Jewish population. It would become known as the final solution.
Himmler and Hitler both know that they can rely on his ruthlessness.
That ruthlessness had been proven many times. A few months earlier, in September 1941, Hitler sent Heydrich to Prague.
In order to restore order in the so-called Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, which is the occupied Czech lands.
Heydrich was appointed Reichsprotector. It was his job to prosecute political opponents and take hostages.
He threatens that anyone associated with underground activity would be murdered alongside his family.
At the same time, he aimed to increase the productivity of Czechoslovakian industry by appealing directly to peasants and workers.
So Heydrich is absolutely convinced that the Czech population has been subdued to a point where they are so terrified of him that no one would dare to make an attempt on his life.
In that assumption, though, Reinhard Heydrich was wrong. I'm Helena Bonham Carter, and for BBC Radio 4, this is History's Secret Heroes. True stories of deception, acts of resistance and courage from World War II. Operation Anthropoid. On the 28th of December, 1941, two men hurtled over the English Channel in a Halifax bomber. Josef Kapczyk and Jan Kubiš wore heavy flying suits. They were forbidden from talking to each other or to the 7 other soldiers on board.
They don't know what exactly they're volunteering for.
This is Robert Garvat, Professor of Modern History at University College Dublin and the author of Hitler's Hangman.
One of them is Czech, Jan Kubiš, the other is Slovak, Josef Kapczyk. Both are very keen to support the Czechoslovak fight for a restoration of their state. And both are willing to engage in very risky operations.
There are a lot of similarities they experienced through life.
Rejla Habsova is a freelance historian and writer.
Josef Kapczyk is 1 year older than Jan. He was born in Polovsie, which is now in Slovakia. He was born in a family who had really very strong feeling of Czechoslovakism. His father really believed in it very strongly.
Both men had humble origins. Kubiš, aged 28, from Moravia, was a conscript in the Czechoslovak army. After the Nazis invaded, he joined a local resistance group.
He was always known as a man who was calm under any circumstances. He was physically quite strong and efficient.
When the Gestapo tried to arrest him, he fled to Poland. There, he met Kabchek.
They were called twins. They didn't look like at all. Josef was quite short, and Jan Kubiš was quite different. His eyes were blue, and he was taller, and he also looked like someone who was much more introvert.
The pair enlisted in the French Foreign Legion. They fought on the Western Front. In 1940, France fell to the Germans. Kubiš and Kabchek were recruited by the Special Operations Executive and were sent to train in the north of England and Scotland. As Kabchek boarded the Halifax bomber that would fly them both back into occupied Europe that evening in December 1941, he said to the colonel, "You can rely on us. We shall fulfill our mission as ordered." Kubiš and Kabchek awaited their chance to put their training into effect and fight for their homeland. In 1938, Germany annexed the Sudetenland, the German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia, most of whose people were ethnic Germans. Controversially, Britain and France allowed this, approving Hitler's annexation with the Munich Agreement. Their leaders hoped that Adolf Hitler could be appeased with the Sudetenland and a wider war could be avoided. But Hitler could not be appeased. The following year, Germany violated the terms of the Munich Agreement when it invaded and occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia. Hitler established the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. Most of its population were ethnic Czechs and Slovaks. The president of Czechoslovakia, Edvard Beneš, fled to Paris and set up a national committee in exile. When France fell, he and the committee moved to London to work for the cause of Czechoslovakian freedom and unity. By 1941, Reinhard Heydrich, as Reichsprotector, had weakened Czechoslovakian resistance movements. His economic policy brought him some favour from workers in the Protectorate. Beneš, in exile, was determined to make a grand gesture of resistance. In September 1941, his head of intelligence in London approached the Special Operations Executive for assistance in getting men and equipment into the Protectorate. They hoped to carry out a spectacular assassination, Heydrich if possible.
They are desperate for a spectacular success story, and killing the head of the Nazi security services is precisely that.
Yet the surviving underground resistance forces in Prague and Bohemia argued that an assassination could have disastrous consequences.
They have a very different view of the price that will have to be paid if such an assassination attempt is successful. And Beneš is prepared to pay that price.
On that evening of the 28th of December, Jan Kubiš and Josef Kabchek flew over Nazi-occupied France and into Germany. Finally, at 2 a.m, their plane reached the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. The location at which they were supposed to parachute out was obscured by heavy snowfall.
And then they are dropped outside of Prague,
some kilometres away from where they were due to land. As they fell to the ground, Kabchek injured his ankle.
From there, they make their way to Prague. There are a number of safe houses where they remain undetected. Eventually, they find out that their job will be to plan and carry out an assassination attempt on Reinhard Heydrich.
Though they knew their mission put their lives in danger, Kubiš and Kabchek were fully prepared to carry it out.
The patriotic feelings for the country, that was that essence. Why to go to fight? There is my country. It's my birthplace, and I wanted to keep it safe. They had to prove that we are not a nation of sheeps, that we are not collaborators. And also, he wanted to put a very clear message that if Nazi Germany will kill our elite, we will bite back.
Special Operations Executive supplied Kabchek and Kubiš with a Sten gun, pistols, armour-piercing bombs filled with plastic explosives, and grenades. In Prague, they went undercover. It would take months to plan the operation to kill Reinhard Heydrich.
They start to follow him around. Surprisingly, they are not caught doing that.
Heydrich lived on a country estate just outside the city. Every day, he travelled by car to his office in Prague Castle.
He always uses the same route, and he never travels with a security detail, which is rather strange. He only travels with his driver. As the weather gets better, he even uses an open-top car.
In May 1942, members of the Czechoslovakian resistance sent messages to London expressing concern at the plans to assassinate Heydrich. Special Operations Executive ignored this. By now, the mission had a code name, Operation Anthropoid, taken from the Greek for having the form of a human. On the morning of the 27th of May, 1942, Kapchek and Kubish both put on caps to disguise the colour of their hair and picked up battered briefcases. Despite the clement weather, Kapchek carried a raincoat to hide his hands when he was assembling the Sten gun. The gun was broken down into 3 pieces in one briefcase. They were also carrying 2 bombs. With their briefcases hanging over the handles of their bicycles, they cycled to the suburb of Holešovice. A third soldier, parachutist Josef Valci, stood further up the hill with a mirror, ready to signal when Heydrich approached. 20 kilometres away, Heydrich finished breakfast and said goodbye to his pregnant wife, as well as to their 2 sons and young daughter.
Heydrich, as usual, gets into his car and, together with his driver, they set off from his country estate. So he's sitting in an open-top car as they drive towards Prague Castle, where Heydrich's office is. They pass a hairpin bend, and the driver is forced to slow down the car. There's also a tram passing by, which slows down the car even further.
Here, Josef Kapchek emerged and aimed his stun gun at Heydrich.
But his gun is jammed.
This moment could have given Heydrich time to shout at his driver, to accelerate and flee to safety.
Instead, he tells his driver to stop the car. He wants to get out, he wants to shoot him, assuming that there's only one assassin.
Heydrich drew his pistol. In that moment, though, Jan Kubish threw a bomb towards the car.
The grenade misses the car, but as part of the explosion, a splinter enters Heydrich's body.
The windows of a tram on the road opposite shattered. Passengers screamed as they were hit by flying glass. Kubish was hit by shrapnel and staggered back.
They realize that they didn't kill Heydrich on the spot. They realize that he's injured, but they don't know how badly injured he is. They don't know what happened.
Heydrich ran towards Kapchek, who stood paralysed, holding his gun. But Kubish recovered himself and pushed through the crowd of tram passengers, firing a pistol into the air. Kubish sped off on his bicycle. Heydrich and Kapchek exchanged fire, but then, unexpectedly, Heydrich collapsed. This was Kapchek's chance to run, and he did. Heydrich's bodyguard chased him, but Kapchek shot him in the legs and managed to escape. Meanwhile, Heydrich had been injured by the bomb Kubish had thrown. He had broken a rib, his diaphragm was ruptured, and his spleen had been pierced by horsehair and wire from the car upholstery.
He's being transported immediately into a hospital where it initially looks as if he's going to survive.
Hitler responded to the attack on Heydrich by ordering 100 Czechoslovakian hostages to be executed. He went further too, demanding the indiscriminate killing of 10,000 Czechoslovakian men. The police leader in the Protectorate managed to talk him out of this, arguing it might endanger his economic plans in the region. Hitler grudgingly agreed, on the condition that the 2 men who had attacked Heydrich were captured immediately. Martial law was imposed on Prague. From 9 in the evening to 6 in the morning every day, the city was under curfew. Public transport stopped. Restaurants, cafes and cinemas were shuttered. 10 million crowns were offered as a reward for capture of the attackers. Police searching for the men raided 36,000 homes and buildings. In hospital, Heydrich refused at first to be operated on by a Czechoslovakian doctor. Then, on the 4th of June,
he dies of sepsis, blood infection, which is caused by some of the horsehair, which is in the upholstery of the car and which enters his bloodstream.
Heydrich's body was transported to Prague Castle. Senior police officers, members of the SS and members of the Wehrmacht surrounded his coffin. Overhead hung a gigantic SS flag.
He's the only senior Nazi who is assassinated during the Second World War. Hitler himself spoke at the funeral and referred to him as the man with the iron heart, which I assume was praise. But it's very clear that immediately after the funeral, the mass executions begin.
On the 9th of June, the Nazis targeted the village of Lidice.
According to local sources, relatives of one of the assassins came from Lidice. And as a result, the Gestapo surrounded the village, executed all men. The women were sent to concentration camps, and some of the children were also sent to concentration camps. Others were given up for adoption by Germans.
The local sources were wrong. None of the assassins came from Lidice, but it was too late. The village was burned down and destroyed with explosives. Lidice was annihilated. In Prague, the raids continued.
There is an increase of rewards for anyone who provides information about the assassins or their supporters.
If anyone give Gestapo a proper information led to assassins, even if he would involved in resistance, he would save himself, his family, and still will be rewarded. If not, it will be just a national genocide.
Meanwhile, the assassins were hiding in a place which no one thought to search.
The Cathedral of St. Cyrillus and Methodius in Reslova Street in Prague was a perfect hideout.
It was a Greek Orthodox church.
Nothing suspicious ever happened there.
Soon after the assassination attempt, Jan Kubiš and Josef Gabčík entered the church along with 5 fellow paratroopers from the resistance.
And they will stay there for a few days and they will be removed very soon. And they will remove them outside of Prague, on countryside perhaps. That was a plan. Reality was a little bit different.
For days, the men took turns to keep watch. 4 paratroopers slept downstairs, while 3 stayed upstairs in the choir gallery.
Darkness, boredom. This wasn't the problem. They were soldiers. What was probably the toughest thing they could experience was probably absolute helplessness.
On the 16th of June, a man entered the Gestapo headquarters. He declared that he was a paratrooper who'd been flown in from Britain and knew where the assassins were hiding. His name was Karol Chuda. He had been dropped into the Protectorate as a resistance fighter earlier that year. He was terrified of reprisals and disillusioned with the government in exile. If he came forward, maybe he could protect his family.
Karol Chuda, let's say, he wasn't the sharpest pen in a pencil. And he didn't know much about Jan Kubiš and Josef Gabčík. But he knew the whole net of resistant members.
Early in the morning of the 18th of June, over 700 Waffen-SS officers surrounded the Cathedral of St. Cyril and Methodius. 10 entered through the back door of the church.
They arrested the warden there. He, of course, refused to admit that someone is hidden there. They also arrested Father Vladimír Petřek.
The Gestapo searched the church but could still find no trace of the paratroopers. Then they found a metal grille. It was locked. The warden claimed he could not find the key. One of the officers forced it open with his gun. At that moment, a grenade bounced down the stairs and shots were fired from above. Troops positioned outside opened fire through the windows. The SS commander ordered his troops to storm the choir gallery. 3 of the parachutists were there, including Jan Kubiš.
And he probably knew he will fight as long as he could to buy some time for his best friend.
The SS fought their way up a twisting staircase using grenades. When they reached the rafters, they found the bodies of 2 paratroopers. Jan Kubiš was still alive.
He moved through all 4 arches on the open gallery.
He hid behind a corner, shielding himself from gunfire. But when a grenade exploded 2 meters away from him,
the shrapnels mostly hit his left part of the chest, belly, and legs. He was put unconscious.
Kubiš was taken to hospital.
And after 20 minutes on surgery, he bled to death.
The siege continued into the morning.
And Gestapo desperately wanted at least 1 paratrooper alive.
Most of all, they wanted Józef Gabčík, Heydrich's surviving assassin. Father Petrik was questioned again by the Gestapo. This time, he confessed.
So he told them that only 1 accessible point to crypt is ventilation shaft, and downstairs there are still 4 more men.
Gabčík was one of these men. They stayed silent in the cold, dark crypt for 4 hours, listening to their friends fighting above. The Gestapo turned to the ventilation shaft.
They forced Father Vladimir, who took care of paratroopers for 3 weeks. He was forced to ask them to surrender, repeatedly. But there was only one answer from below. Never ever. We will never surrender. Czechs never surrender.
When the paratroopers fired shots from below, any negotiation ground to a halt.
Desperate Gestapo decided to flood the crypt. Through 4 hoses, the cold water started to flood the crypt.
But the water did not rise high enough.
At that point, Waffen-SS lost the temper, and 4 soldiers got order to attack the crypt.
The soldiers waded through water. In the dark, they were unable to find the paratroopers. As a last resort, the military commander ordered for the main entrance to be blown open.
So, when the firemen destroyed the stone above the staircase, last 4 shots were heard from below.
The room fell silent. A soldier was sent into the cavity. Minutes later, he emerged, shouting, "Fertig," finished. The 4 paratroopers were found dead in the crypt. Gabčík had killed himself with his own revolver.
He fought as long as he could. And at the moment, he knew he won't be able to fight anymore. He knew that he won't let enemy to get him alive.
Throughout the Protectorate, in the aftermath of Heydrich's death, the Nazis continued their vicious reprisals.
The Nazi leadership loses a very talented manager of terror, but he was replaced and the terror continues unabated.
The village of Ležáky, like Lidice before it, was liquidated. Outside those 2 villages, over 3,000 Czechoslovakians were arrested. Many were sentenced to death or sent to concentration camps. Thousands of Czechoslovakian Jews held in Theresienstadt concentration camp were transported to death camps in Poland, where they were murdered. The Czechoslovakian resistance was all but destroyed. Those on the ground had been right about the dangers of carrying out such a high-profile assassination. Many who were involved in Operation Anthropoid went on to downplay or even deny their roles in its planning. After the war, though, the full extent of the Nazi Holocaust was revealed, and Heydrich's central role in planning it became clear. This led more people to conclude that his assassination had been justified.
His death in 1942 didn't change the course of the war. What it did do was what it was actually intended for. It was after the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich that the French government in exile, but also the British government, agreed to annul the Munich Agreement.
In August 1942, the British government withdrew from the Munich Agreement. It granted President Beneš's Czechoslovakian National Liberation Committee official status of government in exile.
So, from Beneš's point of view, it was well worth the terrible sacrifices that had to be made. But of course, this is also somewhat cynical, because I'm sure that the people in Prague, the resistance there, probably felt different, because most of them were killed with their families. So I think assessing the success or failure very much depends on the perspective that you take.
Assassination put fear in the heart of our enemy, allies' enemy. It helped to be not first, but very important domino piece, which helped to support resistance all around Europe, because it showed that it matters.
Many have praised the bravery of Heydrich's assassins. Streets and towns are named after Jan Kubiš and Josef Gabčík. Today, in what's now the Czech Republic, Rejla Habsová gives tours of the Cathedral of St. Cyril and Methodius. Bullet holes mark the walls which hid Kubiš, Gabčík and their comrades. Rejla sees them as icons of resilience.
Jan and Josef became a symbol that you can stand against a huge evil, much bigger than you are. But with your best friend next to you, you can prevail. At least you can't lose, because you won't ever surrender.
Next time on History's Secret Heroes, after the outbreak of World War II, best friends Paulina Gelman and Galia Dukotovich are recruited to fly bombers for the Soviet Union.
They definitely were adrenaline junkies. They wanted to fly, they were crazy about flying, and second of all, they were extremely patriotic.
The Night Witches.